evening, I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Hoss Lightning-Saddleback's August 30th death has left his home community of Samson Cree Nation and the homeless community in nearby Wetaskiwin shaken 3 weeks after his shooting by RCMP there. APTN's Leanne Sanders traveled to the community to talk to members who want to see change.
He was let down by the whole system.
Community activist Stephanie Fleury says when the 15-year-old was shot, he was likely looking for his mother, who was not homeless, but was staying with relatives. His mother spent time in a field where the unhoused gathered as a community. The field is near where Hoss was shot.
Because he was in crisis and he was looking for his mom. I don't think he was out to hurt anyone. He was scared. That's why he called the police for help. And how does a call for help turn into you getting killed by the police that you called for help? It doesn't make sense.
Fleury said police had other options, such as calling a crisis worker, something echoed by another local activist.
I wish they would have called mobile health from Muskogees to come and stop this interaction. I wish there was people that are out there to help with crisis that people are having. There's nothing.
The fear left in the wake of the shooting hasn't left this man, who was unhoused until this past spring, but now has custody of his young teenage son. He asked for his identity to be hidden, he says, out of fear of the police. We will call him Mike.
You know, I was a 15-year-old boy, and I was worried because I got picked up tonight, and I thought it was my son, and I couldn't sleep at all.
What do you tell him to try to keep him safe?
Stay home and play those games. I'll pay for everything else, just play those games. Don't even come out in these streets, because these streets ain't around here. It's messed up.
Terry Smallboy, a community member, said everyone is still in shock over Lightning-Saddleback's death.
I feel as though it wasn't about the RCMP feeling like they were threatened. They suffer an identity crisis far more than our own people, I feel. Once they're in uniform, there's a completely different person in that uniform than there is outside of that uniform.
At the time, Lightning-Saddleback's death was among 7 deaths of First Nations people involving RCMP or police services in Canada within 3 weeks. That number has now grown to 9. All remain under investigation by outside agencies. As for preventing something like this from happening again, Stephanie Fleury has some ideas.
I think that our res needs its own tribal police, and if the RCMP is going to deal with Native people, they need to have a crisis worker to talk in between them, because the police use excessive force.
Hoss Lightning's family is planning an awareness walk on September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, when everyone is reminded that every child matters. Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Wetaskiwin, Alberta.
And you can visit aptnnews.ca for more on this story. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, ACERT for short, has released more details about the fatal interaction on September 17th between a 42-year-old member of the Blood Tribe and several members of the Calgary Police Service. According to ACERT, at around 12:56 a.m., Calgary police responded to a call from hotel staff about removing an unwanted person from the lobby of the Carriage House Hotel. A lone officer entered the lobby to find the man standing near the check-in desk. What happened next was captured on a body camera. The male has no weapons and the officer orders the man to leave. The male acts confused, attempting to pick up non-existent items off the floor. 30 seconds later, the officer aims a taser at the man and again orders him to leave. The man raises his hands and agrees to leave, asking the officer not to shoot him. As he makes his way towards the exit, he says, "I don't want to die." 2 other officers arrive and the man says again that he doesn't want to die. The taser is put away and the man is grabbed by the first officer. ASERT says the man was never told he was being arrested. The man resists and is then tackled by another officer who punches the man in the head while both are on the ground. Officers 1 and 3 then taser the man, and for more than 3 minutes the fight continues before his hands and legs are cuffed. More officers arrive and the man is seen bleeding from his mouth and vomits. A spit mask is then put on while the man is face down, and paramedics inject a sedative 7 minutes later after he was cuffed. The man is left to lay face down in handcuffs, leg restraints, and the spit mask for about 3 more minutes until officers realize he is unresponsive. The man was provided medical care but declared deceased at the scene. ASERT says they are examining the use of force by the officers. APTN News has identified the man as 42-year-old John Wells from the Blood Tribe, a long-time rodeo competitor who competed in both Canada and the United States. He was also the former president of the Blood Tribe Agricultural Society. His funeral was held today at the Senator Gladstone Hall in Alberta. Saskatchewan's Serious Incident Response Team is investigating another fatal officer-involved shooting, this time in Fishing Lake First Nation. On Tuesday, Saskatchewan RCMP say they received a report of an armed man driving a stolen vehicle van on the Fishing Lake First Nation. The man was wanted for a long list of armed robberies across east central Saskatchewan. At 1 p.m., the van was seen traveling at a high rate of speed. Officers tried to stop it, but it kept going. The chase finally ended with a shootout in a field at 1:45 p.m. The driver was found injured in the van. He was declared deceased by EMS. The man has been identified as 34-year-old Joseph Joey Desjardins, and his family has been notified. Desjardins is now the 9th First Nation person to die while involved with police or RCMP since August 29th. More than 50 years ago, 8 students from residential schools in southern Manitoba were returning home to Bunabonabee Cree Nation by plane. Shortly after takeoff in Winnipeg, the plane crashed, killing all, including the pilot. Today, a historical marker commemorating the victims has been unveiled near the crash site. Sab Jonza has more.
The unveiling of this commemorative monument comes 52 years after a tragedy. The names of 8 students and a pilot are engraved in stone to be forever remembered. They were on their way to Bunabonabee Cree Nation on June 24, 1972, when their plane crashed shortly after takeoff in Winnipeg, leaving no survivors.
Everyone in our community remembers this as the darkest day in our community's history. And we need to ensure that it's never forgotten. And we owe it to the 8 students who made the ultimate sacrifice while trying to pursue their dreams, and we owe it to their parents, siblings, and friends to celebrate the lives of their loved ones for the short time they were with us here on Earth.
The students, aged 14 to 21, were returning home from residential schools near Manitoba's capital, roughly 600 kilometers south of Bunabonabee. What would have been a joyous reunion for the families who couldn't see their loved ones for months at a time while they were away turned to devastation as they learned their fate. Bunabonabee Chief Richard Hart says if residential schools didn't exist, perhaps the students would still be alive today.
Many First Nation students across Canada returned to their communities with a broken spirit that could not be healed, and that affected their families from generation to generation. Many students never returned. Many died alone while at these schools and were buried in unmarked graves. Others, like our students, died just trying to get home to where the familiar and where the family and where the feeling of safety lied.
The monument stands only a few hundred meters away from where the plane crashed in a Winnipeg suburb. It's still not clear what caused the accident. The Royal Aviation Museum of Western Canada requested the monument's creation, and it was unanimously approved by City Council. Stacey Robinson is the niece of Iona Wienusk, one of the students who died.
To think of how the excitement these 8 students were feeling, taking off, coming home,
She says the monument may bring closure for some, but not all.
The families, there's still that heartache that they're missing their sisters and their brothers, right? Kind of hard to say there's a closure, but having the stone here means a lot to the families.
Surrounding the monument are 9 saplings, one for each person, to symbolize growth and the future. Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sav. A guaranteed livable basic income. That was the goal of Winnipeg NDP MP Leah Gazan through her private member's bill C-223. However, on Wednesday, C-223 was easily defeated during a second reading. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
At a press conference before the vote, Leah Gazan said a guaranteed livable basic income is not a new idea.
We have income guarantees in this country. GIS is an income guarantee, not livable. Disability benefit is an income guarantee, not livable. All I am asking to do is to increase the current income guarantees to make them livable and spread them out for those who are falling through the cracks.
Natalie Appleyard is with Citizens for Public Justice, and she said basic income programs actually save the social system money in the long run.
Basic income programs have also resulted in downstream savings for healthcare and justice systems, and in fact were not shown to decrease labor force participation rates. Conversely, our current income supports are grossly inadequate, inaccessible, and inequitable.
Senator Kim Pate has her own private member's bill calling for a guaranteed livable basic income. It is currently being studied in a Senate committee. She said a basic income program would go a long way to reducing the number of marginalized people in the prison system, including many Indigenous people.
I came to this after decades of work with folks who are left behind by every other system, folks who end up criminalized and incarcerated. How did I come to this? Because the jails are full of people who are poor, who are racialized, who already experience inequality, social, economic, and health inequality.
In the end, Gazan's proposed legislation was defeated, 273 votes to 54. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If we have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. And you can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We'll be back for more stories right after these messages. Welcome back. Walmart stores across Canada are selling Every Child Matters t-shirts. This year's design is by Mi'kmaq artist Natasha Root. Angel Moore has this story.
The design on these shirts is the creation of Natasha Root of the Listugush Mi'kmaq Nation in Quebec. The Every Child Matters t-shirts are being sold in Walmart stores across Canada. Root couldn't be happier.
Very, very honored. I'm very, very happy and very, very proud.
Root won the NDTR Design Contest held by Indigenous Proud, an Indigenous-owned company that collaborates with Walmart Canada. Root says the wolf design is a symbol of empowerment.
The wolf is one of the 7 sacred teaching animals in our Mi'kmaq culture. So it serves as a timeline, the reminder that, you know, regardless of the era, our children will always matter, and, you know, so our strength is going to always be there.
Jesse Keane is a manager at the Halifax Walmart location. He says the shirts are popular with customers.
The response with customers is overwhelming. We sell out of the orange shirts every single year in Walmart Canada. This is actually our second time selling out since we've got the shirts in a couple weeks ago.
As well, every September 30th, Walmart associates wear the orange shirts to support National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Keane recalls the first year staff wore them and the reaction from 2 Indigenous co-workers.
Everybody just like a sea of orange that day, everybody wearing their orange shirts, supporting. And those two associates, they spoke at our meeting, and they felt supported in that moment. And it changed me as a leader. It changed the way that I led people. And everybody just has to be included. And that's what I took from that.
Each year, a different design for the orange shirt is chosen. Marlise Wilson is the Senior Director of Merchandising.
Featuring Indigenous artists to tell their story of what that day means to them and the symbolism behind it. For me, getting to learn about the different art styles from all of the different nations has been amazing.
This is the 4th year Walmart Canada has been selling Every Child Matters shirts.
It broadens like the knowledge more of what Orange Shirt Day is for people who are not Indigenous, you know, and it's reconciling like who we are as people, and it's connecting us. So, you know, it's a great opportunity, and I'm proud of it. I'm very proud.
Walmart Canada will donate 100% of the profits to the Orange Shirt Society and Indian Residential School Survivors Society. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax.
Thank you, Angel. Ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a new play called Owl Calling is bringing a story about healing from residential school trauma to the stage. It's produced by the Brandon-based Root Sky Theatre Company and premieres at the Rachel Brown Theatre in Winnipeg this week. Set in the summer of 2011, the play follows two best friends, Eddie and Jim, who embark on their healing journey as residential school survivors. The story highlights the flaws of the federal government's independent assessment process, which the playwright says has provided cash compensation but few resources to survivors. The production is directed by Charlene Van Buchenhot and features an all-star cast including Tracy Niepenak and Jeremy Prue. Métis playwright and producer Daryl Racine discusses what he hopes audiences will learn from the play.
Understanding this idea of reconciliation, you know, to this point, the reconciliation that has taken place has, for the most part, been it's been Indigenous people that have been forwarding that effort. And I think that for this work, what we're trying to say is that you know, that the non-Indigenous community needs to have a greater effort in regards to reconciliation, and that they need to understand what it actually takes to participate in that reconciliation.
Stick around, we have more stories right after this short break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. With a view like this, who wouldn't spend time at the lake? Ryan Clyde captured this stunning moonlit sky over Dauphin Lake, located about 15 minutes east of Dauphin, Manitoba. Thank you for sending that photo in. If you have a photo you would like to submit for our photo of the day, send your photos to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, St. John's 11, Charlottetown 18, Cartwright 19, the Grand River 16, 18 in Gaspé, St. Jovite 19, Peterborough 22, North Bay 20, Timmins 20, Wawa 20 as well, 23 in Churchill, Thompson 25, 28 in Princess Harbour, Dauphin 31, 24 in Regina, Saskatoon 19, Stony Rapids 12, Buffalo Narrows 16 in rain, Peace River 14, Fort McMurray 16, showers in Medicine Hat at 21, Red Deer 18, Tofino 15, Kamloops 17, Fort Nelson 15, Dees Lake 9, Watson Lake 18, Mayo 10, Wati 9, Yellowknife 10, Colville Lake 5, Inuvik 2, Baker Lake 9, Chesterfield 7, and Clyde River 7 and Igloolik 4. 3 Cree artists are exploring the meaning of grief through an Indigenous take on a 300-year-old opera, Dido's Lament. This version is called Lament, and it's premiering with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra in Winnipeg tonight. Reporter Sierra Bettens brings us to the rehearsal.
It's really about reminding the broader community, not just the Indigenous folks who will be here tonight, but the settlers, that we are still actively grieving, lamenting disconnection, death, and the ongoing genocide of the Canadian government.
In Winnipeg, a trio of Cree artists are reimagining a 17th century opera about grief. Titled Lament, it tells a story of loss, disconnection, and mourning from an Indigenous perspective.
The idea for this lament concert was to kind of take over these European classical laments from the 17th century and reframe them with Jessica's amazing works that talk about the way we grieve.
On Wednesday, composer and flutist Jessica Swarvier-Wells, baritone Jonathan Adams, and filmmaker Tyson Houseman are premiering the work with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra. One song, called For Nikawe, is dedicated to Swarvier-Wells' birth mother. They were disconnected through the 60s scoop.
In the lyrics, I put it all back on the government and those institutions that forced that relationship apart. And it's also a prayer to, and I guess a lament, for that lost connection.
Another, Lament for Sans Souls, is dedicated to the children who never returned home from residential school.
Lament for Small Souls, which was written after the discovery of the 751 unmarked graves in Cowessess, which is where I was from. It's still really hard to perform because I'm lamenting all of those souls, but also it's the same school that my late grandmother went to.
To bring the score to life, filmmaker Tyson Houseman created visuals to be projected during the performance.
I'm trying to touch on a lot of aspects of like intrinsic Indigenous connections between bodies and land. There's a lot that talks about wildfires. There's an entire sequence that set in a recently destroyed, burned down forest area. It's touching on a lot of topics.
While they're grateful for the opportunity, the artists say the classical music world still has a lot of work to do.
I think that the classical music world has a long way to go. I don't think that we are at any point close to having equity within the field. It feels tokenistic most of the time.
The issue of our stories being framed in a convenient or digestible or palatable way for Canadians, that's nonsense. So at the end of the day, collaborations like this are really meaningful.
Lament debuts on Wednesday evening at the Des Hotels Concert Hall in Winnipeg. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sierra. That's your evening newscast for this Wednesday, September 25th. From everyone at APTN National News, hi, miigwech, masicho. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Exe.